Hello and welcome to Axis Amar. I'm Axis. Most of you are here, probably know why, but just in case, I'll give a little background. So I do a little bit of streaming on Twitch, and one of my favorite things to do is I have a little channel point redemption that people can ask for to do Axis Amar, where I do some soft-spoken or whispered content for 5 minutes in stream. And thanks to popular demand, I decided to make a full-length video to give a little more ASMR for those who wanted it. And this is something that I think is very fun. I love ASMR. I have been a long-time ASMR viewer. Fall asleep to it every night. Very important to me. So I've been very excited to get to make this video. And when I was choosing what to make it about, I went back and forth a little bit. I thought it should be something video game related because, you know, I'm coming from a video game channel to come do this. So I also tried to think about other things I loved, stuff I think is cozy, stuff I think is enjoyable. And what came to mind was the fact that I have a whole lot of video game related stuffed animals. I have a lot of plushies, a lot of different stuffed animals. I really love collecting stuffed animals. They make me very happy. I've enjoyed them since I was a kid, and now as an adult, with grown-up spending money, I get to get animals from all of the different franchises, games, whatever I love, get to patronize a lot of different cool artists. So today I thought I would take you through a couple of different video games that I have plushies from. Thought that would be a fun thing to do. It's going to be a super casual video. I want to keep this really low key. This is my first time trying to make an ASMR video, so it'll be pretty conversational, pretty relaxed. I'm hoping not to do a lot of editing. We'll see how that goes. So this will be mostly soft spoken, with some fabric sounds from the different stuffed animals. So if that sounds like something you enjoy, I hope you'll hang out and you'll keep listening. If not, thanks for stopping by. But let's get started. So I want to hop in first with some animals from, well, I think some of you will recognize these little guys from Stardew Valley. He looks a little lumpy. I had to take them out of my stuffed animal hammock where I keep them in order to do this. But this is one of the chickens from Stardew Valley. We have a nice little white chicken, and this one, I still have the tag on it. This one is officially licensed Stardew Valley merch, but it's from their collaboration with Sanshi, and I have a bunch of different stuffed animals from Sanshi. They make really nice plushies. These ones are some of my favorite. They are so soft and squishy. It reminds me of Squishmallows. I don't know if any of you have Squishmallows, but they have just the nicest, squishiest texture. I'm always tempted to use them as a pillow because they're just so soft. Okay, I'm gonna squish the chicken a little bit. Don't worry about it. He's okay. Bounces back. Oh, it just compresses. It just squishes and bounces back, but he's a friendly little guy. And there are actually 3 colors of these. There are 3 different colors. There's the white chicken. There is, let me turn around, the brown chicken. These are the 2 classic chickens. But if you are a Stardew Valley player, if you've played for any length of time, and especially if you enjoy Shane, then you probably know about the secret 3rd chicken, Shane's special chicken that he takes care of, the blue chicken. So we have all 3 chickens collected together, and they all have similar features, but the blue chicken is a little different. The blue chicken, I see, compared to the white one, who has a pretty normal fluffy tail, this one has the kind of curly Q tail that the special blue chicken has. It's a little fluffy, a little fuzzy, got a little curly Q on there. And instead of having a red comb, a little dangly bit there, has a purple one to go with the purple color scheme. The blue and purple feels like a very magical chicken, and it also echoes the color scheme that Shane has, which I really like. I think it's a nice design touch. So Shane has that kind of blue hair, has that hoodie. I think they look really good together. They're a good, well-paired match between the two of them. I'm realizing now I should have mentioned up at the top of the video that you'll probably also hear my rings clicking. I like to wear a lot of jewelry, and my collection of rings tends to tinkle a little bit, so hopefully those are sounds you like too. But the last thing I want to see on this guy is they have really nice embroidery for the eyes. It gets that kind of pixel art look. It's a little bit of a rougher sound, so I won't spend too long with it. Also, I just feel bad poking him in the eyes. Actually, these are all girl chickens. They're all egg layers, but let's see if I can get all of them together. There we go. There they are. All three Stardew Valley chickens together. The white, the blue, and the brown. They are sweet little curls. I love them very much. So, Stardew Valley I've played for a really long time. It's a game that I think is really nice because you can pick it up, you can put it down, you can come back. I love that Concerned Ape is always still adding more to the game, which I think is really commendable. Not a lot of games, I think, get that kind of long-term support in the same way that Stardew Valley does, and especially as a single dev, it's really nice to see him putting so much love into the project. But one of the nice things about stopping for a while and coming back, I think, is every time I come back to the game after a little spell not playing, there's always something new happening. Like, I played the game first in college, I think, which was a lovely time to play. I was very stressed, and it was nice to have something so soothing and relaxing, a really kind of escapist game to play. Those are some of my favorite kinds of games to play. And so the first time I played Stardew Valley was in college, and I romanced Sebastian immediately. I mean, not fully a surprise that I went for the kind of guy who spends a lot of time on his computer, hanging out at home. That's kind of lifestyle I can relate to, but still a big fan of Sebastian. But he was the first character I romanced in the game, and I had a lot of fun with that playthrough. I got a farm going, it was lovely. I did a lot of exploration out in the mines. I felt like that made sense for that kind of character. It was a couple that made sense, because Sebastian, I think, it implies that he's dabbled in going to the mines a little bit, so I always think that's a nice thing to have some common interests with whoever you're romancing. But I stopped playing the game for a while. You know, I did a lot in the game and was kind of ready to move on, so I got distracted for a few years, and I was playing this on my laptop too, which is nice. But when I got a Switch, a Nintendo Switch, and I realized that I could play the game on the Switch, that was a big game changer, because being able to play all cozy in bed, that is kind of the best way to play, in my opinion. So I started a new save file probably a couple years ago now, and it was amazing how much it changed. For anybody who played in the early days and then came back later, you probably have experienced the same thing. But, I mean, there were lots of little changes, but I was amazed because I hadn't really been keeping up with the updates to come back and see that a whole island had been added. I was not expecting that whatsoever. I really wasn't expecting the addition of the island and the new characters that came with that, and it felt so magical to have something brand new to explore in a game that I thought I knew so well. And that's something that I think is really special, when you get to have that kind of joy and discovery in a game that feels so familiar and still discover new things. But I went for a little bit of a relaxed... There we go. In that playthrough, I think I went for a little bit of a more relaxed, kind of exploratory gameplay. I really focused in on farming and on agriculture. In my first game, I was very focused on livestock, like our little chicken friend. In my second, I think I focused a little bit more on crops. And in that one, I ended up romancing Leah. She is the sculptor in Stardew Valley. I've been playing Moonstone Island and Coral Island, and now I want to call everything an island game. I love that she's an artist. It's really sweet when she moves into your house that she gets to keep a little artist studio outside. It really made me happy to have that kind of creative energy, creative spirit kind of at the home. And it's inspiring to me too, as somebody who likes to do a lot of art and to create a lot of different mediums and stuff, to have a fictional partner, but in the game, a partner who appreciates creativity, and that kind of reminded me to get in touch with some of the artistic things that I like to do. But I think I will continue to come back to Stardew Valley for a long time, I'm sure. I still have more I want to do in that save file, and I'll probably come back later to do another save file too. And I also, because I don't play on PC, I have never gotten to play with any of the Stardew Valley mods, and now there are so many mods, both for modifying the existing game, but also like the Stardew Valley expanded mods for adding more characters, more areas to explore. And while I'm really happy with what's in the canon game and enjoy that a lot, I think that it would be really exciting to get to play those. So I'm hopeful that I'll get a PC at some point in the future so that I can get to explore more in Stardew Valley, get to meet new characters. I think that would be very fun and bring new joy to the game again. So something to look forward to for sure. If you are a Stardew Valley player, I would love to know what kind of choices you made in the game. I'm nosy. I ask everybody who they romanced. That's always, I think, a fun personality test about a person, in the same way that you can ask, like, what's your Myers-Briggs type or something. I mean, those are notoriously inaccurate, so maybe even the more accurate test is who you lean towards as a romance option in Stardew Valley. What does that say about you? What does that say about you? What are you looking for? What do you need? What makes you happy? I think it's a fun thing to look at. And also, if you spent the most time farming or fishing or in the mines, I like the farming. I like the basics. I love going to the mines. I love that sense of exploration. I think that's so fun. It makes me really happy to get to spend time down there. see what I can discover. That sense of progress of making it down floors in the mines was always exciting. But I've never been good at the fishing. I always forget, and it's largely in Stardew Valley, but that's not the only game. I think a lot of games I tend to kind of forget about the fishing options and the mini games. I'm just usually not very good at them. I will forget to go fishing because I focus on stuff I find more fun. But I have so many friends who love fishing in video games, who insist that it's the best part of a game. You can tell how much you'll like a game based on the fishing mini games. So maybe I just haven't found a game with my perfect fishing mini game yet. I just have to find my perfect match. Alright, let's say bye to the Stardew Valley chickens and switch over to our next game. So I was about to introduce these by saying this is from one of my all-time favorite games, but the thing is, all three of the games that I'm going to be talking about today really are all-time favorites for me, and you can probably guess that. I mean, they're the ones that I took the time to get stuffed animals of, to get little plushies of, so I think that's a good sign that they're going to be favorites for me. But this one I anticipate is a favorite for a lot of people. Of course, Mass Effect. I'm a big fan of BioWare games. The first one I ever played was Knights of the Old Republic when I was younger. I can't remember if I played Dragon Age or Mass Effect first. That's a good question. I will have to look back in the memory banks and see if I can figure it out. But I have now played the Mass Effect trilogy a good couple of times. I love all of the games very much. And I love getting collectibles from Mass Effect as well, so I have a good amount of different clothing. I have my my Omniblade replica, little Mass Effect Relay replica, Mass Effect Relay necklace. Look, when I love something, I tend to collect a lot from it, but I do have a couple of stuffed animals from the game as well. So the first one I want to show you is this little Elcor. This one I think is so funny. The Elcor are one of my favorite species in the game. I mean, really, one of my favorite things about the game in general is exploring all of the different alien cultures you get to meet. I always love the idea of encountering those kinds of diverse cultures and getting to see how they interact. In college, I was what I always call an accidental anthropology major, where I had meant to do other things, and my self-designed major didn't pan out, so I had to pick a major first semester of my junior year when a lot of people were wrapping up their majors, really. And I kind of stumbled into an anthropology major, but I've always thought the real dream in a, fantasy world or science fiction world in which science fiction was reality, the dream would be to be able to do xenoanthropology, to get to study alien cultures and see how they interact. I think that would be a really amazing way to live my life. I think I would be very fulfilled by that. But, there are a lot of the popular different alien species, the Asari, the Krogan, the kind of species that end up in your party like that. But I think the Elcor deserve a little more love. They are sometimes played as a kind of jokey character, but they're really large, really large. They're talked about kind of like elephants. They're a little smaller, but they stand, I would guess, probably about 6 to 8 feet tall. They're hulking creatures. They're built a lot like an Earth, elephant or rhinoceros. They have this gray kind of leathery skin like elephants or rhinoceri. And they do speak, but they speak without emotion in the way that we do. They have a very monotone voice. So the thing that kind of makes them unique is that they lead their sentences with an indication of their emotion. They speak it verbally to help other species communicate with them. So they'll say something like, you know, happily, it's wonderful to see you, to indicate that they are happy to see you, even if their tone wouldn't tell you that just based on the sound. And I believe within the lore of the game, the universe that they've built, they communicate a great deal by scent and pheromone. That's one of the things here. So you can see on the little face of this little guy, all these little ridges here. They have almost gills across their face. So they have an excellent sense of smell. They breathe in a lot of air, so they can really detect pheromones from each other and possibly from other species as well. And that's a large part of their own communication, but they adapt with those tone indicators to help communicate with other species. And you know, something I always find funny is nowadays online, tone indicators, like putting a /s after something to say that you're serious, or no, that's /SRS, I'm bad at them, or you know, putting /J after something to say that you're joking, or you know, HJ for half joking or something. Every time I see those, I always tend to think about the Elcor and about how they would probably be able to relate to that. It makes me think of their way of speech. But this little stuffed animal I think is really special. It has some great details from the outfits that they have in the game. They wear this big covering over their back. And you can see this one has some nice references to the fabric textiles that they use in the game. They have armor over their legs, and there are these little joints. This one is embroidered, but it's metal fixtures in the game. And you can see their little toesies poke out of the little pant leg here. Has the little embroidered face. I really like the gills on this one. And you can also see there's a little tiny jump ring on the end of this little strap here. Now he used to have two, but he lost one. I have to sew one back on. They have big metal hoops that hang off of their clothing in the game, and I quite like the look that they have. Now, the other special thing about this stuffed animal that I won't get to show you in this video because it would be too loud is a talking stuffed animal. I believe it was called the My Talking Elcor plush at some point. You can see, I feel like I'm exposing his secrets. He has a little zipper on his tummy that holds his voice box, but if you squeeze right on his middle, he'll say all sorts of different Elcor voice lines, which I think is very cute. Get to hear some of the lines from the game. One of my other favorite thing about the Elcor is that they are big fans of theater, and they love to adapt theatrical productions from other species and do Elcor productions of them. So there are running jokes in the games about Elcor Hamlet, and as a Shakespeare buff who has performed in a lot of Shakespeare plays myself, that really delights me. I love that so much. It makes me very happy to think about the Elcor productions of Hamlet and all of the tone indicators that they probably use in that. It's very delightful. People of other species make jokes about how they're notoriously boring, these productions, because they are so monotone. But I don't know, after sitting through a lot of dubious performance art in my time, I think that I would probably find some joy and entertainment in Elcor Hamlet. I just still really enjoy the sound of running my fingers across the embroidery here. The texture of that, I think, is really nice. Alright, say goodbye to our little Elcor. Thank you for your service, Elcor. I hope you go do Elcor Hamlet. Let's see our next little plushie from Mass Effect. Now, this is one of my favorite characters in the history of video games. For anyone who has played Mass Effect 2, this little guy should look pretty familiar to you. This is Grunt. Grunt is a tank-born Krogan. Now, in Mass Effect 1, you play with Rex in your party, who is a Krogan character that I love. He's a bit of a grizzled old man. And Grunt here is born in a bit of a lab experiment, so he's born pretty much fully grown out of a clone tank, and he's bred to be a super soldier, and he is quite good at that. He is quite good at a little bit of violence. A very successful warrior and biotic with very cool biotic powers. He's a tank. He's a hell of a tank, a really good tank character. Can blaze through pretty much any combat you put him through. But he is, more importantly, a baby. He's a big baby, and you get to spend a lot of the game helping him figure out his identity, who he wants to be, how he fits into the world. And I think that's very sweet to negotiate something like that with a character who's, big and scary, ostensibly on the outside, but a bit of a softie on the inside, though. I'm sure he would never admit it. But my shepherd, my version of shepherd, is very much the kind of, that's my baby boy kind of a shepherd. She thinks she has to protect Grunt, even though he is a big, scary super soldier. To be sure, to her, he's just a baby boy. She got him out of that lab and into the real world, and she has to make sure that he is well taken care of. And I'm gonna make very sure I do in every playthrough. I always take care of baby Grunt, and he takes care of me. And it's very nice, without giving, any spoilers, seeing the different ways he can learn to fit in ways that make him happy and make him feel included and like he's found his family. I'm a big fan of this plushie in particular because it's a very good size for hugging. He fits in very nicely in your lap, in your hands, to cuddle in your arms. It would be a very good, a good little plushie to cuddle up to if you like to sleep with stuffed animals or anything like that. And he also, here, let me tuck this tag in. There we go. Has some sweet little details. You can see he has all of his armor details printed on the soft fabric here. So there's lots of soft printing on the back. He has his little glowing light that a lot of the characters have on the backs of their armor. And you also see he has a little bit of a tail. The Krogans have a little bit of a tail. I think it's so cute on him, his little pointy butt. And he's got the big hump where Krogans keep a lot of extra biological resources. Krogans are notorious for having extra backup organs, so if they mess up one, you can lose one heart because you have another one in there, or two. He also, on his little hands, has little leather gloves. There's some kind of pleather texture, but it's a different fabric feeling, which is nice. And I like this because I get to hold hands with Grunt. He has these nice big blue embroidered eyes. Sorry to poke your eyes, baby boy, but they're very pretty. It's nice pops of color on him, I think are very sweet. Now, for anybody who plays Mass Effect, I'm curious if you have an alien race that you connect with the most. I think a lot of people tend to like the Asari for their elegance or their intellectualism. The biotic powers help too. I think it would be really fun to be an Asari. I love the idea of that long lifespan and getting to explore the universe, explore the galaxy, see all there is to see with a little bit less pressure of time. It's kind of like being an elf in a fantasy universe, or at least if you're looking at like Lord of the Rings rules. You have a lot more time to spend in the world, a lot to see with, I think, a lot less stress. Krogan, I think, don't get enough love. I think they're painted as typically thought of as pretty warlike people, and there are a lot of them that are mercenaries or other types of combatants, and there's nothing wrong with that. At least in the universe, they're very good at what they do. But I think it's really interesting looking at the other parts of their culture, looking at the clan system they have, where there's this rich history of interaction, of matriarchal societies. A lot of interesting stuff to look into there. Also, one of my favorite characters that you meet in the original Mass Effect trilogy is a Krogan poet. But I don't know if you even ever get to actually talk to him one-on-one. But as you're walking through a spaceport, you get to hear about his Krogan poetry that he's writing for the Asari that he is in love with. And there's something about that I think is so beautiful, that across all of these species and all of these distances in space, that he still tries to express his love in a way that feels so familiar and can cross experiences and cultures and boundaries, and it's just a simple way of sharing emotion. I also would love to see a little more love for the Solarians in the games. Solarians make excellent side characters. There are a lot of Solarian scientists. This kind of lizardy amphibian race. They're very interesting, have shorter lifespan, but are known for having brilliant minds. And I would really love to see more Solarian characters in the main party, or more plot relevant. They're often secondary side characters. Dr. Morden Solus is the exception, but I would love to see more. And a little more exploration of their motivations as a culture. We don't get to see a lot of that. I also think that they should give us Solarian and Krogan romances. I'm biased. I think the best way to explore space is to fall in love with everybody as a cross-cultural exercise. And so far, they haven't let me smooch a single Krogan or Solarian, and I think that's an act of cowardice. Let me smooch a Krogan. If I die, I die. So be it. All right. Say goodbye to our sweet baby boy Rex. I love him. I love him so much. Don't worry, he gets a lot of love from me. And let's switch over to the final game we're going to be talking about. But I also have the most plushies from this game, so you'll get to see a few. It's another BioWare favorite. You might be able to predict exactly what I'm talking about if you, like me, are a BioWare fan. So, I feel like every good fictional universe needs to have at least one kind of silly little guy. This is a rule that Studio Ghibli, I think, follows very well, of characters like Soot Sprites, the Wada Wada, and the Boy and the Heron now. A lot of silly little guy characters that just are very endearing. And in the Dragon Age universe, for anyone who has played those games, the absolute classic silly little guys from Dragon Age are the Nugs. The Nugs are these silly little rabbit, pig kind of creatures. They're quite small. They're like a rodent size in the game, but they're known for being usually hairless, like these little pink guys. You can see the little spots he has on his booty. Typically hairless. It's almost like a naked mole rat, or I think probably the most like a hairless guinea pig if you're looking for a real world comparison. But they've got these cute little paws and whiskers, and they were introduced in the first game in Dragon Age Origins. There are a bunch of different Nug items and references that you can find. And they became a bit of a fan favorite. So as the games went on, they built out more and more lore for the Nugs. More and more different types of Nugs. So this is the classic pink one. Has delightfully fuzzy ears. The whole body is kind of flocked and velvety, but the fabric on the ears is softer than everywhere else on the stuffed animal. And this one, like the Elcor, I have to be careful with because instead of having a voice box, this one has a squeaker inside, so you can squish right on the middle, and it'll squeak, much like a dog toy. Speaking of, I have to keep this one far away from my dog, because if he ever discovered that this little guy has a squeaker inside it, oh, it would be his. He would steal that so fast. But, like I said, as the games go on, they do a lot of different kinds of nugs. So this is the original, the pink nug. The cute little pink hairless nug. But as they expand and they look at different areas of the map, they started introducing different kinds of nugs. And this one is another one, a fuzzy little brown nug. Still got the pink inside the ears. Still got the familiar body shape and little whiskers. This one, his whiskers are a little droopier. He looks like a catfish. It still has the same pointy little tail and cute little paws. But this one's a furry brown nug. And these ones, the first time I remember seeing them in the games, I think they were introduced in the Emerald Graves, which is a beautiful area of the map. A really lovely area of the world. It's a lot like the Elven Kingdoms in Lord of the Rings, where it's very forested and green and lush. And in the Dragon Age lore, it's an area that once had a lot of elves, but in the time of the games has a lot of artifacts left behind. So as you explore these beautiful green woods, you find all of these old statues and ruins, and you get to see elven gods and beautiful old architecture. I think the art direction of the Dragon Age games is so beautiful. There's so much lovely art to look at, and the inspiration for the elves' art is always so lovely. There's a really delicate sensibility for it and elegance. They're inspired by natural patterns. And I think that it always reminds me of Art Nouveau, of the Art Nouveau art period, which is one of my favorite parts of art history. And you get to see these lovely, organic, nature-inspired patterns and motifs. It's really delicate, gentle sculpting and kind of lines. They're meant to mimic trees and flowers and leaves and branches. They're very lovely to look at. And it really contrasts with different art styles like that of the dwarves. Now that's much more Art Deco. It relies on very geometric lines and strong shapes and architecture, which makes sense for people who lived underground and had to engineer things out of stone blocks, structures to support tunnels and vast amounts of earth. And as a people, they're portrayed as much more sturdy and matter-of-fact, kind of people who build tools out of metal and stone. Whereas the elves build things out of wood, branches, twigs, soft fabric, which is not to undermine their craftsmanship. They make beautiful weapons. Some of the elven staves for magic users are my favorite designs in the game. I always play as a mage. I always tell myself I'm going to play as something different in my next playthrough. That I'll try playing a rogue or something like that. But the allure of playing with magic is just too much for me. I've never understood in a game where you could have magic why you would possibly play as a class without one. And now, don't get me wrong, I understand from character building and story perspectives it makes so much sense to explore all of the different characters and backgrounds. But I'm simply a sucker for being able to do magic. All of my favorite stories when I was younger tended to be about people who discovered they had magical powers. That's always what I wanted when I was little, and I think it continues into adulthood as well. I still like to play games where I get to have magic powers. So I always end up playing as a mage. And the funniest part about that is that I've never played a dwarf, which is a little silly. I have always said I'm built just like a dwarf. Just like a dwarf from a fantasy universe. I'm a little short and built short and wide. And so those are the kinds of characters that look just like me, and I think I would get a lot of satisfaction out of building a dwarf character and getting to design a character that looked so much like I do. But I have never played as a dwarf, because alas, the dwarves cannot use magic. And because I only play as characters who can use magic, I've never played as a dwarf. Maybe one day I will finally cave and play a rogue or something so that I can finally play the game as a dwarf. But it's always a little silly, I find, when I'm playing the games as other races. The first time I played Dragon Age Inquisition, that was the first game where they introduced Qunari as playable characters. For anyone who doesn't know Dragon Age, Qunari are very tall, strong, muscular, statuesque people. They tower above everybody else. They're probably more like 7 or 8 feet tall. They're very imposing. They usually have horns and gray kind of cast skin. They're similar to, I'm trying to think of a comparison. It could be more like an ogre or something like that in other fantasy worlds, but a little more personable perhaps. But that was the first time you could play as one, and so the first time I booted up the game, I was so excited to get to play the new game, and realizing that you could play as a Qunari was very exciting. Because, I had played the game mostly as elves before, but I love the allure of something new and exciting, so I designed my first character in Dragon Age Inquisition as a Qunari. And in games, I pretty much always try to make my characters look like me. And sometimes in, future playthroughs and second playthroughs, I'll branch out a little bit and do, me with a different hair color, or me with different tattoos or something. But usually at first, I try to design my first character to look as much like myself as possible. So, I designed my Qunari that way, and I'm a person with a round little face with round little features. So I designed a character. Her face looked pretty much just like mine, but with, gray skin and horns. I quite liked my horns. But when they pulled out, the character creator, I was just looking at the face and the face and the face. When they pulled back and I got to see the whole character, it looked so funny to see just my tiny round little head on this 7.5 foot tall statuesque woman. It was a little silly looking, but I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And I'm also not very tall in real life, but I've never played a character that was so tall in anything, and I thought that was so funny that I spent so much time at the beginning of the game running around and trying to bump my head into all of the chandeliers that you can find in Haven, the first town you're in the game. And I did that for probably a few weeks at least, for every time I would boot up the game. I was running around the main hall. I would hop over tables and bonk my head into all of the chandeliers and giggle to myself because I thought it was so funny. And you know what? I still think I was right. And I saw as I was turning it around that I was right. I didn't realize the tag said it, but this one is the Emerald Graves Nug plush. There's one more nug I want to show you. Let me put this guy down. The last one is a secret nug. As I said, they kind of kept expanding the different kind of nugs you could find. At first there was just the pink one, and then they introduced the brown one. And then there was the golden nug, which was rare, almost a mythical creature, difficult to find, shiny and gold, still got the cute little tail, the shiny spots on the booty, the signature whiskers, but in a shiny glowing gold. And you can find this one in the game too, but finding the golden nug is a bit of a challenge. It's one of a few different special nugs that they introduced. There's the golden nug. There's the king of the nugs, which is one of my favorites. You can find a nug presiding over a royal court of other nugs with a little crown, which is very cute. Very cute. And once again, in Inquisition, they added a lot of stuff into the game in Inquisition. But in Inquisition, one of the fun things in the game is that there are rideable mounts, different horses that you can ride. Hala, which are these kinds of fantasy universe deer creatures that are a favorite among the elves. But they also added, among the more mythical mounts that you can find, a giant nug, which is a huge nug the size of a horse that comes with big horns that you can ride around the world like you're riding a horse. And that was one of my favorite mounts to ride in the game. I always thought it was so funny, but it was my friend, my sweet giant nug that I would ride. If you play Dragon Age, I would love to know what your favorite of the mounts was. There are so many you could collect. Some I think might have been in DLC, I'm not sure. But I loved the giant nug. I also was a big fan of, I think it was the swamp unicorn or the bog unicorn. Some name like that. But it was a spooky kind of undead horse that looked like it had perhaps died a while ago, but come back in a less lifelike form. And it had a sword coming up through the bottom of its head, coming out of the forehead like a unicorn horn. Perhaps a little grim, but what can I say? I've always liked things that are a little macabre. The texture of this one is a little different than the other two plushes. The velvet feels a little different. The gold makes it a little, it's not exactly stiffer, but it just sits in a different way. So you'll get some slightly different sounds from this one. These little guys are just so cute. I think they are the sweetest thing. I always keep them all lined up together. Same thing with the Stardew chickens, because I think they look so sweet as a little trio. Let's see if I can get them all together. We have the gold. We have the brown. And we have the classic pink. All three nugs together. Sweet little babies. Kind of like a bunny. Kind of like a guinea pig. Kind of like just a pig. I think they are darling little creatures. Leliana in the game, who's a party member in Origins and one of your advisors by the time you get to Inquisition. She loves nugs and has a nug of her own at home that she writes letters to check in on, which I think is very sweet. But as long as we're talking about pets in the game, there is one other sort of a pet, sort of a companion to talk about. So let me swap over to that. So, I am, of course, talking about the Mabari, the dogs in the Dragon Age universe. Now, these ones, I think, are quite inspired by bully breeds like pit bulls and mastiffs. They're quite sturdy dogs, and the design of the plushie really resembles that. They're quite stocky and thick dogs that assist you in combat, and they are from Ferelden. They are well known there, not as much used in other countries in the game, but the Fereldans are known for loving their dogs. So in Dragon Age Origins, you have a Mabari as one of your party members, one of your default party members. And so you can choose to swap your Mabari out with one of your human or, elven or dwarven companions and take him with you out on your adventures. It was always a tricky part of the game for me because I love seeing all of the different character interactions you can have with everybody in your party. It's one of my favorite parts of games, and one of the reasons why I tend to like BioWare games so much in particular is they do a really great job with character building, with building these unique characters that are well written and really well developed for the most part. And so I love having my characters with me out in the field, because as you walk around the world, they'll tend to chat, give you little tidbits about what's going on in the day or in their history. You get to learn about them, see how they interact with your other party members. That party banter, as they call it, is very fun. But in Origins, my problem was always that I wanted to take my dog with me everywhere. And if you take the dog can't talk. So you miss out on a lot of conversation options if you bring your dog everywhere. But I simply love bringing my dog everywhere. So it was always a bit of a struggle for me to decide whether I should bring 2 people with me or if I could bring my dog. And they did things a little differently in Dragon Age 2, where they didn't have a Mabari party member at first. You just had boring old people in your party. Don't get me wrong, I love them. Dragon Age 2 is perhaps one of my favorite games. It really is one of my favorite games ever, and I think probably my favorite of the Dragon Age games. But, so I obviously do love the characters, but they were no dogs until one of the DLC packages added in a Mabari. And it was very exciting. And the best part was that you could bring it along with you as an extra party member without swapping out one of your people in your party. So I still got to have all my character interactions and all of my conversations with my friends, and also bring my dog around with me. Now in the first game, the Mabari is tan, kind of like this golden tan color you can see around his muzzle. And there is a Mabari plush like that too. I don't have that one. I want to get that one. But this one is a special edition that came out, the black one. And I can't remember, I think that in Dragon Age 2, your Mabari looks more like this. But I remember my Mabari from Dragon Age Origins very clearly. My first Mabari. You always remember your first dog or your first Mabari. And I named mine Obi, O-B-I, like the belt on a kimono, and I don't remember why. I was playing the game when I think it was probably around 14 the first time I played Dragon Age Origins. And I had no idea what to name my dog, and for some reason that was the first thing I thought of, and I liked it. I tend to like pet names that are short and quick to say. I think that's a nice thing, especially for an animal like a dog that you have to call frequently and train to know its name. So it stuck, and I grew to love Obi very much, and I named my dog in Dragon Age 2 after the original Obi, and now in almost every game I play where you get a dog ever since then, I almost always name my dog Obi in honor of that first Mabari, which to me, it just, from choosing it on a whim, it has now stuck as the perfect name for a video game dog in my mind. And actually, the first time I played Stardew Valley, to bring it back full circle, I wasn't sure what to name my dog, because at that point, my first playthrough, the one with Sebastian, I had a dog in the game, because at that point in real life, I only had cats, and I'd always wanted a dog, so I got a dog as my in-game pet, and I named it Obi. But by the time I got to my second Stardew Valley playthrough years later, I had a dog and no cats, and I missed my cat, so I got a cat instead. A little bit of balance there. Anyway, back to Dragon Age. One of the extra interesting things about the Mabari is that they are well known for having war paint, since they are principally war dogs that are meant to come and go into combat with you. They can get different paint patterns, and that's what these red stripes on this one are. You could get different colors of war paint. There's usually red and black, or the more common ones, I believe. It's been a long time, but I think those were the most common ones back in Origins. And it was like getting a suit of armor for one of your party members, where different Mabari war paint patterns, different paint patterns, would give them different protection and health boosts and stuff like that. Different defense boosts or attack boosts or resistances. And I always thought that was so special. I loved getting to decorate my dog. It was always fun getting to choose how I wanted to decorate my dog. My real life dog now, I do not think would have so much patience to be painted. And he would lick it all off immediately. I can hardly get him to wear a sweater, much less let me paint him. I like the texture of these embroidered paint stripes. I think that texture sounds very nice. I keep putting him close up to the camera to get closer to the microphone, but you're really getting an up-close view of the puppy. Hopefully, you don't mind, I'm sure. Well, it is quite late thankfully, this has gotten me nice and sleepy. I'm hoping you're feeling the same way. Oh. I'll probably have to edit that out. That was the sound of my Xbox turning on. It is possessed, and this is my old one. I've gotten an Xbox One since then, but I still have my old Xbox. No, I got the Xbox Series X, that's my old Xbox One, that I still haven't unplugged. And it sometimes turns itself on out of nowhere. But I think that is a sign that it has heard me talking about Mass Effect and talking about Dragon Age. And it thinks I should get back to playing the game. So, we'll end the video here with a little bit of background hum from my Xbox, which I think is apropos. Oh, and the last thing, a little treat for you, very literally, to show you before the video ends, is that this little guy, in a very sweet move, came with his own little dog treat. A little dog treat that says Crunch on it. It's a little silly. I never got a little puppy bone for my Mabari in the game, but I will happily take one from my sweet baby boy in real life. And I am sure that off camera in the game I gave my Mabari many, many delicious treats. So, I am going to go off and get ready for bed. I hope you are feeling nice and relaxed and cozy. And if you are falling asleep, I hope you sleep very well. Thank you for spending time with me. I'll just keep going with the fabric noises for a minute. So if you are falling asleep, I hope you can be lulled into a quiet, lovely, peaceful sleep. Good night.